George Cornell, originally named George Myers, was born on November 13, 1927, and became known as a prominent figure in the London criminal underworld. He was a key member of the Richardsons, a gang from South London involved in various illegal activities, including extortion, torture, and scrap metal dealing. The Richardsons were bitter rivals of the Kray twins, who dominated the East End of London with their own gang. Cornell's fate was sealed on March 9, 1966, when he made the ill-fated decision to visit the Blind Beggar pub in Whitechapel, deep in the heart of Kray territory. Cornell had previously insulted Ronnie Kray, calling him a fat poof, which was considered a grave insult. When Ronnie Kray learned that Cornell was in the pub, he saw it as an opportunity to assert his dominance and settle the score. Ronnie Kray entered the Blind Beggar and, in front of several witnesses, shot Cornell in the head at close range. The murder was brazen and carried out in broad daylight, symbolizing the brutal power struggles between rival gangs in London during the 1960s. Despite the witnesses, fear of retribution kept many silent, complicating the investigation. However, the killing of George Cornell was a turning point in the Kray twins' criminal empire. It drew intense police scrutiny and ultimately led to their downfall. The Krays' reign of terror in London came to an end, but their legacy as some of Britain's most notorious criminals endures. George Cornell, born in Hoxton, London in the early 1920s, came of age amidst severe economic hardship and social unrest. Hoxton, situated in the East End of London, was notorious for its impoverished and often dangerous neighborhoods. This area, scarred by the lingering effects of World War I and the emerging crisis of the Great Depression, was characterized by overcrowded slums, crumbling infrastructure, and a pervasive sense of hopelessness. Families like Cornell's faced daily struggles, as employment opportunities were scarce and survival was a constant challenge. The economic climate of the time exacerbated the difficulties faced by working-class families. With high unemployment rates and a lack of social safety nets, many residents of the East End found themselves ensnared in cycles of poverty and crime. Young men like Cornell, who grew up in such an environment, were often driven toward gangs and criminal activities as a means of securing some form of financial stability and status. Cornell's early life underwent a notable transformation when he and his siblings changed their surname to Cornell by deed poll, adopting the name of their stepfather, Joseph Cornell. This name change marked a significant shift in their family dynamics. Joseph Cornell, who married George's mother, Mary Ann Garrett, became a prominent figure in their lives. The adoption of the surname not only symbolized the blending of families, but also reflected George's transition into a new family structure. This change was more than a mere alteration of identity. It represented a critical adaptation to his evolving familial and social environment during his formative years. Growing up in the tough working-class environment of London's East End, Cornell was no stranger to hardship and the need to earn a living from a young age. At just 12 years old, he began working as a fish porter at Billingsgate Market, one of the most famous and busiest fish markets in the world at that time. Billingsgate, with its chaotic, bustling atmosphere, was a place where young boys like Cornell learned the value of hard work and the importance of making connections. The market was a melting pot of characters from all walks of life, and it was here that Cornell began to develop the street smarts and resilience that would later serve him well in the criminal underworld. Cornell's early life was marked by the typical struggles of a working-class boy in the East End. He attended local schools where education was basic and often interrupted by the need to contribute to the family's income. The environment in which Cornell grew up was one where toughness was valued, and many young men were lured into petty crime as a way of proving themselves and gaining respect in their communities. Cornell's work at Billingsgate exposed him to the rougher side of life in London. The market was a place where the strong survived, and young George quickly learned how to navigate the often brutal environment. The physical labor involved in carrying heavy loads of fish and dealing with the sometimes unruly market workers helped toughen him up. More importantly, the experience taught him how to deal with people from all backgrounds, a skill that would prove invaluable in his later dealings in the criminal world. Beyond his work at Billingsgate, Cornell also found employment at the nearby docks, a hub of activity and another breeding ground for illicit enterprises. The docks were a vital part of London's economy, handling goods from all over the world. But they were also rife with opportunities for those willing to bend the rules. Cornell, by this time a teenager, began to run credit rackets, exploiting the system to earn extra money. This early venture into crime was a stepping stone that introduced him to the darker side of London's economy and put him in contact with others who would later play significant roles in his life. It was during his time at the docks that Cornell forged important friendships with figures such as Lenny Hamilton and Billy Frost. These relationships were more than just casual acquaintances. They were bonds formed in the shared struggles and ambitions of young men trying to make their way in a tough world. Hamilton and Frost, like Cornell, were drawn to the opportunities that the docks presented, not just for legitimate work, but for the kind of under-the-table dealings that could provide a quicker path to money and power. The trio's activities at the docks marked the beginning of Cornell's deeper involvement in the criminal underworld, as they delved into schemes that blurred the lines between legality and outright criminality. By his teenage years, Cornell was already on the fringes of the criminal underworld. The lack of stable employment opportunities and the influence of local gangs led him to associate with individuals involved in petty theft, burglary, and other minor crimes. The East End during this time was a hotbed of criminal activity, with various gangs vying for control of different territories. The Cray twins and the Richardsons were two of the most notorious gangs, but many smaller groups also operated in the area, each trying to carve out a niche for themselves. Cornell's early criminal activities were relatively minor, but they set the stage for his later involvement with more organized and dangerous elements of the London underworld. He quickly gained a reputation as someone who could handle himself in a fight and was not afraid to get his hands dirty. These qualities made him an attractive recruit for more established criminal organizations looking to expand their influence. As George Cornell matured, his criminal endeavors evolved from opportunistic thefts to more structured and strategic operations. His formative experiences in the workforce had honed his physical resilience and keen instincts for reading people, skills that would prove invaluable in the high-stakes realm of organized crime. His early encounters with violence and survival had provided him with a gritty edge, while his capacity to understand and manipulate those around him became essential in navigating the complexities of criminal enterprises. In the late 1940s, as Cornell entered his 20s, he gravitated towards more formidable criminal associations. His connections with individuals like Hamilton and Frost, both emerging figures in the criminal underworld, expanded his network and provided crucial support as he delved deeper into organized crime. These alliances helped Cornell gain access to resources and opportunities that were critical for his ascent in the criminal hierarchy. During this period, Cornell became closely affiliated with the Richardsons, a notorious gang from South London. The Richardsons, led by the infamous brothers Charlie and Eddie Richardson, were known for their extensive criminal activities, which ranged from extortion and protection rackets to the most heinous acts of violence, including torture. The gang's reputation for brutality and their willingness to employ extreme violence to achieve their objectives made them a formidable force in London's criminal landscape. Cornell's integration into the Richardsons marked a pivotal shift in his criminal career. Transitioning from petty crimes to significant organized criminal operations, he quickly adapted to the gang's brutal modus operandi. His East End toughness, combined with his practical criminal experience, made him a valuable and trusted member of the gang. Cornell was involved in various operations, including enforcing the gang's interests and participating in violent confrontations. This period solidified his standing within the criminal underworld, setting the stage for his further involvement in organized crime. During this period, George Cornell's criminal career began to reach new heights as he played a crucial role in the expansion of the Richardsons' criminal empire. The gang, led by the feared Richardson brothers, was making significant strides in consolidating its power throughout South London. Cornell's involvement was instrumental in this process, as he was deeply engaged in the gang's various operations and efforts to establish dominance in the region. One of the primary areas of the Richardsons' criminal enterprise was the scrap metal business. Officially a legitimate industry, it served as a perfect cover for the gang's illicit activities. Under the guise of a legitimate business, they controlled the scrap metal trade through a combination of brute force and intimidation. Cornell was a central figure in this aspect of their operations, using his experience and ruthlessness to enforce the gang's control over the industry. His role involved not only overseeing the gang's interests, but also personally engaging in acts of violence and coercion to maintain their grip on the market. Despite his increasing prominence within the gang, Cornell was known for his discretion and low profile. Unlike some of his more flamboyant criminal counterparts, he preferred to operate behind the scenes. His unassuming demeanor and preference for staying out of the limelight helped him evade the attention of law enforcement for a significant period. This cautious approach allowed him to continue his criminal activities with a degree of security, even as the Richardsons' operations became more audacious and dangerous. Cornell's ability to navigate the criminal underworld with subtlety and effectiveness was a testament to his strategic acumen and deep understanding of the dynamics of organized crime. Cornell's criminal trajectory began on October 30, 1944, when he was convicted for stealing chickens. This initial offense was relatively minor, but set the stage for a pattern of criminal behavior that would follow him throughout his life. In May 1945, Cornell faced a more serious charge. He was convicted of garage breaking and larceny, resulting in a 3-year prison sentence. This conviction was a significant step up from his earlier offenses and highlighted a burgeoning pattern of criminal behavior. By 1950, Cornell, now known by his adopted surname, received his first major prison sentence under the name George Cornell. He was convicted at the Central Criminal Court for unlawful wounding and malicious damage, leading to a 15-month prison term. This case demonstrated Cornell's increasing involvement in violent crime. In 1951, Cornell faced further legal issues. He was fined for assault and willful damage, reflecting continued violent behavior and further evidence of his criminal lifestyle. The nature of these offenses indicated a growing propensity for violence and criminal disruption. Cornell's criminal activities continued into 1953. He was imprisoned for breaking into a shop and stealing items such as cigarettes and razor blades. This period also saw him assault 2 police officers and use abusive language, resulting in a 40-shilling fine. These offenses were part of a broader pattern of violent and disruptive conduct that marked his criminal career. In 1954, Cornell was again in trouble with the law, this time for malicious wounding. He was believed to have attacked a woman with a blade, further demonstrating his violent tendencies. This case added to his criminal record and highlighted the increasingly violent nature of his offenses. During the late 1950s, Cornell's criminal activities persisted. Specific details from this period are less documented, but his ongoing involvement in criminal enterprises during these years is consistent with his established pattern of behavior. In 1961, Cornell faced additional legal troubles, including charges related to assault and other criminal behavior. The specifics of these charges reflect his continued involvement in violence and criminal activities. Cornell's final known prison sentence occurred in 1963. This incarceration marked the end of a series of legal troubles that had become a defining feature of his life. His repeated offenses and stints in prison were a testament to his entrenched involvement in the criminal underworld. Throughout his criminal career, Cornell's repeated stints in prison were indicative of the broader challenges and risks associated with his lifestyle. His frequent encounters with the law were a direct result of his participation in violent and illegal activities, which ultimately shaped his life and legacy. Initially, Cornell was part of an East End gang known as the Watney Streeters. Over time, he became involved with the notorious Cray twins, Ronnie and Reggie Cray. One of the most pivotal connections in Cornell's early life was his relationship with Billy Wiltshire. Wiltshire was a cousin of the Cray twins and shared a similar criminal background. Cornell and Wiltshire's association began during their mandatory national service, a period of compulsory military service that was a common experience for many British men at the time. During their national service, Cornell and Wiltshire served together, which allowed them to forge a strong bond. This period of service was more than just a military obligation. It was a formative experience that shaped their characters and provided them with a sense of discipline and camaraderie. For many men of their generation, national service was a rite of passage that prepared them for civilian life and introduced them to a network of contacts that could be valuable in their future endeavors. Serving alongside Wiltshire during national service played a crucial role in Cornell's eventual connection to the Kray twins. The discipline and organizational skills learned during this period were instrumental in shaping Cornell's approach to criminal activities. More importantly, the service allowed Cornell to establish relationships with individuals who were deeply entrenched in the criminal underworld, including the Kray twins. Serving alongside Wiltshire brought Cornell into closer proximity with the Kray twins, Ronnie and Reggie, who were quickly making a name for themselves as major players in the London underworld. While Cornell did not immediately become involved with the Krays, the connection through Wiltshire meant that he was always within the orbit of their operations. This link would become increasingly significant as Cornell's own criminal career advanced, ultimately leading to his infamous encounter with Ronnie Kray years later. Around 1964, George Cornell made a dramatic shift in his criminal allegiances by joining the Richardsons, a formidable rival gang led by the notorious brothers Charlie and Eddie Richardson, along with their associate Keith Ascom. This transition marked a significant turn in Cornell's criminal career, as he moved from his previous affiliations to become a key player in one of London's most feared criminal organizations. Within the Richardsons, Cornell took on a crucial role as an enforcer, working alongside the notorious Mad Frankie Fraser. His responsibilities included managing the gang's negotiations and interactions with their chief rivals, the Kray twins. These meetings, often held in notorious establishments such as the Grave Maurice pub, were a battleground for negotiation and intimidation as both gangs vied for control of London's criminal underworld. Cornell's shift to the Richardsons also meant stepping directly into the crosshairs of the Krays, who dominated the East End and were locked in a bitter struggle with the Richardsons for supremacy. The rivalry between the two gangs was notorious for its violence and intensity, as both sides engaged in brutal tactics to undermine and outmaneuver each other. Cornell's elevated status within the Richardsons made him a prime target for the Krays, who were determined to eliminate any threats to their dominance. As the conflict between the Richardsons and the Krays escalated, Cornell's role became increasingly perilous. The gang wars of the era were marked by a series of violent confrontations, and Cornell's involvement placed him at the forefront of this bloody struggle. His growing reputation and strategic position within the Richardsons only intensified the danger he faced as the Krays sought to assert their control by targeting key figures like Cornell. On March 9, 1966, George Cornell found himself in a tragic confrontation that would end his life. That evening, Cornell, accompanied by his friend Albie Woods, entered the Blind Beggar pub located in Whitechapel, East London. They ordered light ales and settled onto stools next to the bar, a seemingly ordinary start to what would become a fateful night. Around 8:30 p.m., the atmosphere in the pub shifted dramatically when Ronnie Kray, one of the infamous Kray twins, and his associate Ian Barry walked in. Cornell's reaction to the unexpected presence of Kray was notably sardonic. Upon spotting Kray, he reportedly smiled and said, "Well, just look who's here," a remark that hinted at the tension between the two men. The mood quickly escalated as Barry, in a display of intimidation, fired 2 shots into the ceiling of the pub. This act was a clear warning to the barmaid and the patrons present, signaling that something violent was about to unfold. Kray, known for his cold and calculated demeanor, approached Cornell with a calm, almost detached air. He produced a 9mm Luger pistol and, without hesitation, shot Cornell once in the forehead, just above his right eye. Cornell's reaction was immediate but grim. He slumped against a nearby pillar, the bullet having passed through his head. The severity of his injury was evident as he was quickly transported to a nearby hospital. Despite medical efforts, Cornell succumbed to his injuries around 3:30 a.m. the following morning, at the age of 38. His death marked a significant moment in the ongoing gang conflicts of London's underworld. The aftermath of the shooting was marked by a swift and chaotic response. News of Cornell's death spread rapidly throughout London, stirring up both shock and fear among those who were familiar with the violent world of the Kray twins and their rivals. Despite the fact that Ronnie Kray was identified by several eyewitnesses who saw him leave the pub in a composed manner, the police faced significant challenges in pursuing justice for Cornell. The witnesses, wary of retribution and entangled in the fearsome reputation of the Kray twins, refused to testify against him. Consequently, the authorities were forced to release Kray from custody, a decision that underscored the pervasive influence and intimidation tactics employed by the Krays. Cornell's funeral took place at Camberwell New Cemetery in South London. His burial was a solemn event, marking the end of a tumultuous life that had been deeply entwined with London's criminal underbelly. Cornell's death was widely recognized as a pivotal moment, highlighting the brutal nature of gang rivalries during that era. He was notably the first victim of Ronnie Kray's criminal actions, a fact that would cement his place in the grim history of London's gangland. The circumstances of Cornell's death, combined with the inability of witnesses to come forward, illustrated the profound fear and control exerted by the Kray twins over the London underworld. It was a clear indication of the lengths to which these criminal figures would go to maintain their dominance and the challenges faced by law enforcement in tackling such entrenched criminal networks. George Cornell's murder by Ronnie Kray became a significant event in the criminal history of London, reflecting the extreme violence and the pervasive atmosphere of intimidation that characterized the period. His life and death remain a stark reminder of the intense and often deadly rivalries that define the era's criminal landscape. Cornell's story is a reflection of the broader social and economic conditions that characterized the East End during the mid-20th century. His life, from a tough upbringing in a working-class neighborhood to his involvement in organized crime, illustrates the challenges faced by many young men in London during this time. His eventual demise at the hands of Ronnie Kray underscores the violent and precarious nature of the criminal world he inhabited, where rivalries were often settled with deadly force. On March 4, 1969, the criminal saga of the Kray twins reached a significant legal milestone. Ronnie Kray, one of the most notorious figures in London's criminal underworld, was found unanimously guilty by a jury at the Old Bailey for the murder of George Cornell. This verdict marked a critical moment in the criminal justice system's effort to hold the Kray twins accountable for their violent actions. Ronnie Kray's conviction was a result of a high-profile trial that brought to light the violent world of organized crime in London. The jury's decision was not only a reflection of the gravity of the crime, but also an indication of the growing resolve of the legal system to tackle the pervasive influence of criminal figures like the Krays. Ronnie's conviction for the murder of Cornell was a pivotal moment in a series of legal battles that would eventually lead to the downfall of both Kray twins. In addition to Ronnie Kray's conviction, his twin brother, Reggie Kray, faced justice for his own crimes. Reggie was found guilty of the murder of Jack McVitie, a crime that had occurred in 1967. McVitie, known as Jack the Hat, was killed as part of the Kray twins' efforts to maintain their dominance and settle scores within their criminal network. The verdict against Reggie Kray highlighted the ruthless and violent tactics employed by the Krays in their pursuit of power and control over London's underworld. Both Ronnie and Reggie Kray were sentenced to life imprisonment, a consequence that reflected the severity of their criminal activities and the impact of their actions on the victims and society at large. Their sentences were a testament to the significant legal and societal efforts to address and curb the influence of organized crime. Ronnie Kray's life came to an end on March 17, 1995, at the age of 61. He died at Wexham Park Hospital in Slough, Berkshire, following a heart attack that he had suffered 2 days earlier at Broadmoor Hospital. Broadmoor was a high-security psychiatric hospital where Ronnie had been held due to his mental health issues and his criminal behavior. His death marked the end of an era for the Kray twins, closing a chapter on one of London's most infamous criminal dynasties. Reggie Kray's life also concluded with a notable event on October 1, 2000. when he passed away at the age of 66. Reggie had been released from prison on compassionate grounds due to terminal cancer. His release was a reflection of the gravity of his health condition and the compassionate considerations often afforded to terminally ill prisoners. Reggie's death brought closure to a life marked by violence, crime, and ultimately, a prolonged period of incarceration. The deaths of the Kray twins marked the conclusion of a tumultuous and influential era in London's criminal history. Their ascent to power and subsequent fall from grace illustrated the intricate and often brutal reality of organized crime during the mid-20th century. The Kray's criminal empire, characterized by both its audacious ambition and its ruthless methods, was emblematic of the broader challenges faced by law enforcement in confronting the pervasive influence of such criminal networks. The trials and convictions of Ronnie and Reggie Kray were landmark events in the legal and criminal landscape of the time. These high-profile cases underscored the difficulties faced by the justice system in tackling deeply entrenched criminal enterprises. The legal battles against the Krays not only highlighted the severity of their crimes, but also showcased the commitment of the judicial system to addressing the threat posed by organized crime figures. The eventual convictions and imprisonment of the twins were pivotal in signaling a shift towards more aggressive measures against the criminal underworld. Despite their downfall, the legacies of Ronnie and Reggie Kray continue to captivate public imagination and scholarly interest. Their lives and criminal careers symbolize the dual nature of organized crime, the allure of power and glamour juxtaposed with the harsh realities and consequences of a life lived in the shadows. The Krays story remains a significant chapter in London's historical narrative, reflecting the dramatic interplay between crime, justice, and its broader societal impact. Their legacy endures as a stark reminder of the complex dynamics of organized crime and the ongoing efforts to combat its influence. The saga of George Cornell, from his early days in the tough streets of Hoxton to his tragic end at the Blind Beggar pub, encapsulates the violent and turbulent nature of London's criminal underworld in the mid-20th century. His journey from a working-class boy to a key figure in the Richardsons and his eventual confrontation with the notorious Kray twins underscores the brutal power struggles that characterize this era. Cornell's murder by Ronnie Kray was not just a personal vendetta, but a significant marker in the ongoing gang wars that dominated London's criminal landscape. The shocking event at the Blind Beggar highlighted the extreme measures that criminal figures would take to assert dominance and settle scores. The subsequent legal proceedings and the eventual convictions of the Kray twins brought a measure of justice, but also underscored the pervasive fear and intimidation that had allowed such crimes to flourish. The Kray twins' eventual downfall, marked by their life sentences and later deaths, signaled the end of one of London's most infamous criminal dynasties. Their rise and fall reflected the complex interplay between crime and justice, and their stories continue to be a compelling part of London's historical narrative. The legacy of George Cornell, intricately linked with the broader narrative of the Kray twins, serves as a poignant reminder of the violence and upheaval that marked this tumultuous era in London's criminal history. Cornell's life and death encapsulate the brutal realities of a life steeped in criminality, reflecting the relentless power struggles and treacherous dynamics that define the criminal underworld of the time. Cornell's story, interwoven with the rise and fall of the Krays, highlights the personal tragedies and violent conflicts that characterized the gang wars of the 1960s. His role as a significant figure within this brutal landscape underscores the harsh consequences faced by individuals who navigated the dangerous world of organized crime. The persistent and often deadly rivalries between gangs like the Richardsons and the Krays paint a vivid picture of the chaotic environment in which these criminal figures operated. Reflecting on Cornell's life and the broader implications of the gang conflicts, we see a narrative that is both a tragic personal saga and a crucial chapter in the annals of organized crime. His experiences, alongside those of the Kray twins, stand as a powerful testament to the enduring impact of crime on individuals and communities. The story of George Cornell and his entanglement with the craze remains a compelling example of the dark influence of organized crime and the formidable challenges faced by law enforcement and society in addressing and mitigating its impact. On May 17, 2023, at approximately 2:30 a.m., police responded to a disturbance call on Beechwood Drive in North Lanarkshire. Upon arrival, they were confronted with a scene of extreme violence and brutality. Ross Al-Ghalani, a notorious enforcer linked to a major organized crime syndicate, and two accomplices had just carried out a savage attack on James Sheridan, a former gang member with a troubled past. Sheridan, who had once been involved with the criminal underworld, found himself at the mercy of the gang after he had previously been imprisoned for possession of cannabis and £14,000, which he had been caught with during a police raid. Sheridan's attempts to leave his criminal past behind while serving his sentence were thwarted when the gang held him responsible for a significant loss of drugs and cash. This retribution led to his brutal assault. Al-Ghalani, known for his ruthless enforcement of gang orders, was a trained mechanic who had built a reputation for extreme violence despite having a previously limited criminal record. His rise within the criminal hierarchy demonstrated how seemingly ordinary individuals could transform into formidable enforcers through involvement with organized crime. On May 16th, Sheridan, having been released early from HMP Low Moss near Glasgow, was followed to a property in Coatbridge. That evening, Al-Ghalani and his gang broke into the house and found Sheridan and his girlfriend, Samantha Cook, in a bedroom. They viciously attacked the couple with machetes and swords before fleeing the scene. Cook managed to call 999, and Sheridan was rushed to the hospital with severe injuries, including a head wound and multiple lacerations. His right leg was amputated above the knee, and he also lost 2 fingers. Cook also required significant surgery, ultimately losing 2 fingers from her right hand. Despite the severity of his injuries, Sheridan appeared unfazed in a video that surfaced online, where he seemed to downplay the loss of his leg. Sheridan and Cook later separated. Meanwhile, Al-Ghalani's next target was Scott McRan, who owed the crime group £19,000. On June 14th, Al-Ghalani abducted McRan and took him to a house in Wishaw. There, McRan was stripped to his underwear, bound, and subjected to brutal attacks with a baseball bat and a machete over the next 2 days. McRan was struck more than 100 times and had his hand burned on a cooker as part of the gang's violent retribution. Following a period of intense retribution orchestrated by Ross Al-Ghalani, Scott McRan was coerced into involving his relatives to pay off a substantial £19,000 debt. Despite these efforts to settle the score, Al-Ghalani's aggression did not wane. About a week later, Al-Ghalani issued another summons to McRan, instructing him to meet at a specified location in Wishaw. Upon arrival, McRan was forced to strip naked, and the scene that unfolded next was marked by extreme brutality. Al-Ghalani, who had already earned a reputation for viciousness, shot McRan approximately 20 times with an air rifle. The assault did not stop there. Al-Ghalani then proceeded to batter McRan with a baseball bat, demonstrating a level of cruelty that shocked onlookers. In a particularly disturbing act of sadism, Al-Ghalani involved a toddler from the household in the violence. He handed the air pistol to the young child, who was coerced into demanding that McRan raise his hands before shooting him again. This gruesome spectacle was both a demonstration of Al-Ghalani's ruthlessness and a further psychological torment for McRan. McRan's ordeal did not end with this attack. After managing to escape, he was forced into negotiating with the crime syndicate to devise a plan to recover their money. The court was informed that McRan required multiple surgeries following these brutal attacks. The injuries necessitated extensive medical intervention, including treatment for severe damage to his hand and the extraction of pellets from his body left from the repeated air rifle shots. Remarkably, McRan was one of 2 individuals initially charged in connection with the attack on James Sheridan, alongside Al-Ghalani. Arrested along with Tony Redpath on July 7th, McRan faced serious charges of attempted murder. However, the charges against him have been mysteriously dropped, and the reasons behind this legal decision remain unexplained. The current status of the case involving McRan and Redpath is not publicly known. In his final act of violence as an enforcer, Al-Ghalani's actions reached a new level of brutality on July 4, 2023. He targeted a residence in Helensburgh, where a couple was living. According to Police Scotland, Al-Ghalani entered the property in Helensburgh's Hood Court via an unlocked door around 1 a.m. He confronted a 19-year-old woman in the kitchen, wielding what appeared to be a police baton and wearing an orange high-visibility jacket with a reflective stripe. His attack was swift and violent as he struck the woman twice, despite her efforts to defend herself. The woman's dog played a crucial role in her defense. The dog began attacking Al-Ghalani's leg, which ultimately led him to flee the scene. The assault resulted in severe tendon damage to the woman's left hand, leaving her with long-term physical and emotional scars. The exact motive behind this final attack remains unclear, adding another layer of complexity to Al-Ghalani's violent spree. During the court proceedings, it was revealed that Al-Ghalani was a trained mechanic with a previously unremarkable criminal record. His sudden descent into severe violence over a span of approximately 7 weeks was both alarming and perplexing. His lawyer, Brian McCann KC, described the period of offenses as mayhem, and noted that Al-Ghalani himself was distressed by the footage of the attacks, likening it to a horror film. The impact of these violent acts on Al-Ghalani's psyche was evident as he struggled with the reality of his actions. Al-Ghalani's personal life was also affected profoundly by his criminal actions. With a family and children, the emotional toll of his imprisonment and the knowledge that he would miss out on their upbringing was significant. The contrast between his seemingly ordinary life and his extreme criminal behavior remains a troubling aspect of the case. Judge Lady Stacy addressed the severity of Al-Ghalani's crimes during sentencing. She noted that, had it not been for his guilty pleas, Al-Ghalani would have faced an 18-year prison term. She condemned his actions as despicable, cruel, cowardly, and sadistic, reflecting the court's disapproval of the nature of the offenses. Additionally, Al-Ghalani will be subject to supervised release for 3 years following his eventual release from prison. This harrowing sequence of events highlights the disturbing reality of organized crime and its devastating effects on individuals caught in its web. From the brutal assault on James Sheridan, which resulted in severe injuries and an amputation, to the extreme violence inflicted upon Scott McRan, the actions of Ross Al-Ghalani and his associates paint a grim picture of criminal retribution. From the initial attack on Sheridan, marked by machetes and swords, to the grotesque scenes of violence inflicted upon McRan, where he was not only beaten and shot but also subjected to further humiliation, the severity of Al-Ghalani's brutality is both shocking and indicative of the gang's fierce enforcement tactics. The involvement of a toddler in the violence, a deeply unsettling act, highlights the extremes of moral depravity that can accompany such criminal behavior. The court proceedings and sentencing offer a glimpse into the complexities of Al-Ghalani's life. A trained mechanic whose descent into organized crime and violence raises questions about the transformation from a seemingly ordinary individual to a feared enforcer. The dissonance between his everyday life and his extreme criminal actions paints a troubling picture of how personal and systemic factors can drive individuals to commit heinous acts. This case serves as a stark reminder of the destructive power of organized crime and the severe consequences it can have on individuals' lives. It also raises questions about the circumstances that can lead a seemingly ordinary person to commit such heinous acts. As we continue to cover similar cases and provide updates, it is crucial to remain vigilant about the impact of crime on society and the importance of justice for its victims. In reflecting on these events, we are reminded of the importance of justice and the ongoing need to support those affected by crime. The saga of Ross Al-Ghalani is a sobering reminder of the need for continued efforts to combat organized crime and protect vulnerable individuals from its devastating consequences. In the first video, we see a robbery involving a private cellar. The seller, likely an older gentleman, had posted his watch online and arranged to meet the thief, who posed as a potential buyer, at a coffee shop. The video shows them sitting inside with the thief pretending to inspect the watch, engaging in casual conversation to build trust. Suddenly, without warning, the thief snatches the Rolex and sprints out of the shop, leaving the seller stunned and helpless. The victim, due to his age and the suddenness of the theft, had no chance of catching the thief, making it a particularly sad and frustrating scenario. This incident serves as a poignant reminder of the risks involved in private sales of high-value items. If you're selling a watch privately, it's crucial to take precautions to ensure your safety. Always choose a well-lit public place with security cameras, such as a coffee shop or a bank lobby, for the meeting. Bringing a friend along can provide an additional layer of security and act as a deterrent to potential thieves. Moreover, if possible, inform local authorities of your meeting plans and consider asking them for advice on safe transaction locations. These steps can help reduce the risk of falling victim to such brazen thefts and ensure a safer transaction experience. In the next video, we see two thieves approaching a small office space with clear intent. They quickly enter and attempt to steal a Rolex watch from a businessman inside. Based on the footage, it appears the thieves had spotted the watch earlier, possibly while the victim was out in a public setting, and followed him back to his office. This kind of premeditated robbery indicates that the thieves had been observing the victim for some time, waiting for the right moment to strike. In such situations, the victim has little choice but to comply and hand over his watch to avoid injury. The video shows the thieves struggling to open the clasp, trying to forcibly remove the watch from the victim's wrist, which is both shocking and disturbing to witness. This scenario highlights the critical importance of being aware of your surroundings and avoiding flaunting valuable items in public. It also underscores the need to stay vigilant, especially if you notice someone paying unusual attention to your belongings. The third video shows a robbery taking place in a barber shop. The thief likely noticed the watch earlier or had some contact with the victim before the event. Otherwise, it's very unlikely that someone would randomly enter the store and target the watch with such precision. In the footage, the victim acts correctly by immediately handing over his watch, recognizing that the thieves are heavily armed. This quick decision likely prevented the situation from escalating into violence. This situation serves as a stark reminder to be cautious and discreet with your valuables in public places. It's crucial to remain composed and cooperative in the face of such danger, prioritizing personal safety over material possessions. Additionally, this incident highlights the value of situational awareness and the importance of trusting your instincts if something feels off or if you sense that you are being watched. Next video is one of the most shocking I've seen so far, showing a fully secure jewelry store being robbed in broad daylight. In the video, the first thief blocks the door with his suitcase, allowing his partner to get inside. The store employee tries his best to close the door, but the suitcase prevents him from doing so. Unfortunately, the store lacks a double-door security system, which is standard in many high-end jewelry stores today, and it appears there is no security guard on duty. At this point, the best course of action is to surrender and let the thieves take what they want to avoid further danger. You can see that at least one of the robbers is carrying a gun. The situation quickly escalates into a brutal smash and grab, with the thieves smashing display cases and grabbing as many valuable items as they can. The store employee ends up seriously injured on the floor after the robbery. The robber's aggression underscores the extreme risk involved in such crimes, making it clear just how dangerous these situations can become. Fortunately, concerned bystanders acted quickly and called the police. The subsequent police chase was intense, but it ended positively with the robbers being apprehended. This quick response from both the public and law enforcement was crucial in resolving the situation. This incident also underscores the importance of having robust security measures in place, such as double-door systems and security guards, especially in stores that handle high-value items. It also highlights the importance of training employees to handle such dangerous situations to ensure their safety. Moving on to the fifth video, we witness another high-stakes robbery at a jewelry store. In this case, the robbers use a car to ram through the front door, allowing them to break in. Inside, the store is equipped with a security smoke system designed to obscure visibility and make it difficult for intruders to breathe. While this system doesn't prevent the thieves from entering, it significantly impairs their ability to locate and steal high-value items. This type of security system is now standard in many high-end jewelry stores due to its effectiveness in reducing theft. Despite the effectiveness of these security measures, it's still startling to see how thieves are willing to destroy expensive vehicles in their quest for valuable watches. The cost of these high-value cars often pales in comparison to the value of the stolen items, highlighting the thieves' willingness to cause extensive damage. In the final video, we see a similar approach where a car is used to ram the front of the store, creating an entry point for the robbers. They then proceed with a swift and coordinated smash-and-grab operation, targeting display cases and grabbing as many high-value items as possible. Unfortunately, the store's security smoke system activates a bit late, giving the thieves several extra seconds to search for and collect valuable merchandise before the smoke fills the store and obscures their vision. This delay in the activation of the security smoke system significantly hampers its effectiveness, allowing the robbers to escape with a substantial amount of stolen goods. The footage highlights the importance of timely security measures in preventing such brazen thefts. In these cases, the swift and brazen actions of the thieves demonstrate the lengths they are willing to go to for high-value items. It's essential for both individuals and businesses to stay informed about the latest security practices and technologies. For personal safety, consider discreetly wearing your valuables and avoiding public displays that might attract unwanted attention. For businesses, investing in comprehensive security measures, including surveillance cameras, security guards, and advanced systems like security smoke and double-door entries, can greatly reduce the risk of such incidents. Furthermore, it's important to foster a community of awareness and vigilance. Sharing information about recent thefts and suspicious activities can help prevent future crimes. Encourage local businesses and community members to report unusual behavior and support each other in creating a safer environment. By working together and staying informed, we can help protect ourselves and our communities from these alarming threats. Thank you for joining us today, and remember to subscribe to our channel for more tips and insights on keeping your valuables safe. Additionally, it is crucial to collaborate with law enforcement to develop better crime prevention strategies. This could involve organizing community watch programs, participating in safety workshops, and engaging in discussions about the latest crime trends. Moreover, staying updated on the latest technological advancements in security is key to staying one step ahead of criminals. Emerging technologies such as AI-driven surveillance systems, facial recognition, and real-time threat detection can offer additional layers of protection. Businesses should consider integrating these innovations into their security protocols to enhance their ability to deter and respond to thefts swiftly. Similarly, individuals can benefit from personal safety devices, such as GPS-enabled trackers and discrete panic buttons, which can provide peace of mind and immediate assistance in dangerous situations. By embracing these modern security tools and continuously reassessing their effectiveness, we can better safeguard our possessions and ensure a safer environment for everyone.